There is no jail in an Amish community, no cell, no barred window, no guard. If you ask an Amish man about prison, he will tell you, honestly, that his people don't believe in it. They believe in forgiveness. They believe in mercy. They will quote you the words they live by. That you must forgive 70 times 7, that vengeance belongs to God and not to men. And every word of that is true. I grew up hearing it from the time I could sit still on a wooden bench. But there is a punishment in my community. It is older than any prison in this country. It does not leave a mark on your body. It does not show up in any record. No court ever signs off on it, and no lawyer can ever appeal it. And the men who have lived through both, actual prison and this, will tell you quietly, when no one else is listening, that they would take the prison. My name is Jacob. I grew up Old Order Amish. I was baptized into the church on my knees on the wooden floor of a neighbor's house. I left a few years ago, and this channel is where I finally say the things I was raised to keep behind the barn door. I want to be careful tonight, because I am not here to call anyone a villain. The people who carry out this punishment are, most of them, weeping while they do it. My own family would be among them. They are not cruel people. They are obedient people, and that is a far more frightening thing, because cruelty you can see coming, and obedience you cannot. So tonight I am going to tell you exactly what happens when an Amish person is shunned. Not the cartoon version, the real procedure, the steps, what it does to a human being to be erased by everyone who has ever loved them, slowly, deliberately, according to rules that everyone in the room has memorized. They call it the ban. They call it the Meidung. The English word is shunning. And by the end of this, you will understand why I told you it is worse than jail. Let me start with the thing nobody outside understands. Here is the first thing they don't want you to know. The ban only has power over you if you were baptized. And baptism in our world is not a thing that happens to a baby. In the outside Christian world, most people are baptized as infants. You have no say. It's done before you can remember. In the Amish church, it is the opposite. You are baptized as a young adult, somewhere between 18 and the early 20s, after a season of instruction, kneeling in front of the whole congregation, answering the bishop's questions out loud. And in that moment, you make a vow, not to a building, to God and to the church and to the Ordnung, the unwritten rule book that governs everything from the brim of your hat to whether your buggy may have a windshield. Once you make that vow, you are inside the gate, and the gate locks behind you, because now, if you ever leave, you are not a person who simply moved away. You are a person who broke a holy promise to God in front of witnesses, and a broken vow is what gives the ban its teeth. That is the trap, and it is a beautiful, terrible piece of design. They wait until you are old enough to be held responsible and young enough to have never seen the world, and then they ask you to sign your name to the only life you've ever known. And almost every one of us says yes. I said yes. I knelt down and I said yes at 19, and I meant it, because at 19 I could not imagine the person I was going to become. The second thing people get wrong is that they think shunning is a community losing its temper. An eruption. People so disgusted by you that they turn their backs. It is the opposite of that. It is calm. It is procedural. It follows steps that everyone has known since childhood. It does not begin with the ban. It begins with quiet visits. If you start slipping, if you buy something forbidden, if you miss church, if word gets around that you've been seen with a phone you shouldn't have, or driving a car, or asking the kind of questions that make people uneasy, the ministers come to your house. Gently, at first. They sit at your table, and they talk with you, and they pray with you, and they give you the chance to confess and turn back. This can happen more than once. The community genuinely does not want to lose you. Everything in this stage is built to bring you home. If that fails, the matter goes before the church. Twice a year before communion, the congregation holds a members' meeting, the Ordnungsgeme, where the church examines itself, and every member must be at peace with every other member before they can take communion together. Your case is brought there, and the decision to place a baptized member under the ban is not made by the bishop alone. It is put to the membership, and it must be unanimous or close to it. Your neighbors, your uncles, the men you raised barns with, they vote on whether to erase you, and because no one wants to be the one holding out, because the pressure in that room is the weight of the whole community's eyes, the vote comes. And once it is cast, the ban is in effect, and now everyone is bound to follow it, not as a feeling, as a duty before God. So what does it actually look like? This is the third thing, and this is the one I have watched with my own eyes. It looks like a table. Your family is eating supper, and you are at the table, and you cannot eat from it. Not because they pull the food away in anger, but because the rule says a member under the ban may not eat at the same table as members in good standing, not as equals, not sharing one bowl. So they set you a place apart, a second small table a few feet away, close enough to hear every word, far enough that everyone in the room understands you are no longer one of them. It looks like a hand. You cannot take anything directly from the hand of a person in good standing, and they cannot take anything directly from yours, because to pass a dish hand to hand is to share in your sin. So your own mother, the woman who fed you from her own body, will set a dish down on the table and step back and let you pick it up from the wood. She will not place it in your hands. I have watched a grown man's wife set his plate on the table and turn away so that she would not have to hand it to him. They had been married 20 years. She did it because she had been taught that this was how she would save his soul. It looks like business. A shunned man often cannot do business with the community the same way. People will buy from him reluctantly or not at all. He may ride in a buggy, but he may not be the one driving it while members are aboard. The exact rules vary from one district to the next because the ordnung is local and unwritten, but the shape is always the same. 1,000 tiny refusals, each one small enough to seem like nothing, that together add up to a man being deleted from the only world he has. And here is what makes it unbearable. None of it is done in hatred. If it were hatred, you could harden yourself against it. But it is done in love. It is done with tears. The people enforcing it believe with their whole hearts that this loneliness is the only thing that might bring you back to God before you die. They are not punishing you because they stopped loving you. They are punishing you because they love you and because they have been taught that the kindest thing a person can do for your eternal soul is to make your earthly life unlivable until you repent. There is no defending yourself against love. That is the genius of it. I need to stop for 1 second because this part is heavy, and if you are still here, I don't want to lose you. If any of this is landing, if you have ever been frozen out by people who told you it was for your own good, do me a favor and subscribe. This channel is where I keep pulling the door open on the world I came from, and I am not going to stop. And tell me down in the comments, were you ever cut off by a family or a church or a group that called the cutting off an act of love? Amish or not, I read every single one. And you are not as alone in it as they made you feel. Now, let me tell you about the part that the cameras never see. Most people imagine the ban as one dramatic moment. The door slams, the family turns away, and that's the story. But the cruelest part is not the slam. It's the years. The ban is not designed to end your relationships. It is designed to suspend them, to hold them just out of reach. The community is not saying we never want to see you again. The community is saying we will take you back the moment you kneel down and confess and submit. The door is not locked. The door is left open just a crack, on purpose, forever. And so you live the rest of your life with your family on the other side of a door that is always technically open. All you have to do to walk through it is give up the self you became, surrender the questions, bury the person you found out you were. Kneel down in front of the whole church and confess that leaving was a sin, and they will weep and embrace you, and the table will be one table again. Think about what that does to a person. A clean break. You could grieve. You could bury it and move on. But this is not a clean break. This is a wound that is reopened every holiday, every wedding, every funeral you are not fully welcome at, every birth of a niece or nephew you hear about secondhand. You spend years standing in front of a door that is open just enough to keep you hoping and not enough to let you home. And the price of walking through it is the one thing you cannot pay. Becoming again the person you had to stop being in order to survive. That is the fourth thing they don't want you to know. The ban is not a wall. It is a door left open on purpose. And the open door hurts more than any wall ever could. Now, you might be thinking, surely people just leave anyway. Surely in a country this size, with this much freedom and hours drive in any direction, the threat can't really hold. It holds. It holds better than almost any prison ever built. And the proof is in the numbers. The overwhelming majority of people born Amish stay Amish their entire lives. The retention is among the highest of any way of life in America. And it is not because every one of them looked at the wider world and freely chose the buggy. It is because the cost of leaving was set deliberately at the highest price a human heart can be charged, everyone you love, all at once, with the door left cruelly ajar behind you. The practice is centuries old. It runs back to the very origins of these people, to a split among the early Anabaptists in Europe over exactly how strictly the ban should be applied, how complete the shunning of a wayward member had to be. One side said it should be softer. The stricter side, the followers of a man named Jacob Amann, said it must be total, that even a husband and wife must withhold from a banned spouse. That stricter side is where the word Amish comes from. So this is not a side practice that crept in. The willingness to shun completely is woven into the founding of the entire people. It is, in a real sense, the thing that made them who they are. That is the fifth thing. The shunning is not a flaw in the system that the Amish would fix if they could. It is the load-bearing wall. Take it out, and within a generation or two, the whole structure of separation from the world quietly comes apart. They know that. That is why it will never go away. The sixth thing is the part I think about most, because it was me. Every Amish child grows up watching this happen and learning the lesson long before anyone explains it. You don't sit a child down and threaten them with the ban. You don't have to. The child sees the man at the small table. The child sees their grandmother set a dish down and step back instead of handing it over. The child hears the adults go quiet when a certain name comes up and learns, without a single word, that this name belongs to someone who is now a ghost, alive, breathing, sometimes living right down the road, and gone. The child absorbs somewhere below thought the deepest rule of all. There is a line, and the people who cross it disappear, and the disappearing is forever shaped even when it isn't forever. By the time you are old enough to wonder whether you might want a different life, that lesson is already in your bones. You don't experience it as a threat. You experience it as gravity, as simply the way the world is built. The fear isn't taught to you as fear, it's taught to you as truth, and you carry it to your own baptism, and you kneel down, and you say yes, not entirely freely, though no one in that room would ever call it anything but a free and joyful choice. That is the sixth thing they don't want you to know. The ban does its hardest work on people it never even touches. It does it on the children, who learn to police themselves so they will never have to be policed. And here is the last thing, and it is the one that took me longest to make peace with, because it is the one that makes it impossible to simply hate them. The shunning costs the people who enforce it almost as much as the person they shun. I have seen it in my own family, the ones who follow the rule and feel it break something in them every single day. A mother who has to live the rest of her life with a son she may not eat beside. A father who turns away from a child and goes out to the barn alone afterward and does not come in for a long time. They did not invent this. They inherited it, the same as I inherited it, the same as their parents did. They are not free either. They are bound to a practice that asks them to wound their own children in the name of saving them, and most of them never once in their lives get to ask whether that price is too high, because asking is itself the kind of question the whole system exists to prevent. So when I tell you the ban is worse than prison, understand what I mean. I do not mean the Amish are monsters. I mean the opposite. I mean that these are good, loving, gentle people, trapped inside a machine of love that turns that very love into the bars. The prison would only hold the one who broke the rule. The ban holds everyone, the shunned and the shunner, the parent and the child, the whole community locked together in a grief no one is permitted to name. So that is what really happens when you are shunned by the Amish. Not a slammed door, a small table set a few feet from the big one, a dish placed on the wood instead of in your hands, a vote taken by the people who raised you, a door left open just wide enough to keep you bleeding, and underneath all of it, a love so total and so misshapen that it has learned to look exactly like erasure. If you have ever been on the wrong side of that kind of love, frozen out, held at arm's length, told the cold was for your own good, then I want you to know I see you, and you were not weak for how long you stood at that open door, hoping. You were working with the only family you were ever given. There are things about my own leaving that I could not put in this video. The names. The specific night the table got smaller in my own house, the exact words that were said, and the way back that I chose not to walk. I wrote all of it down, the parts that would never survive on a platform like this one. And you'll find the book linked in the description and pinned in the first comment. Subscribe, because I'm going to keep telling the truths I was raised to swallow, gently, honestly, and without ever forgetting that the people behind that door are still mine. Until next time, hold your people close, but never let anyone teach you that love is something you have to disappear to deserve. That lesson nearly cost me everyone. Unlearning it is what gave them back.